didn't think they go above 1,000. You know, like a car speedometer doesn't go above 99999. But wow, 5,000.
Letter carriers say they've been working for more than 500 days without a contract, and today they made their voices heard on the streets of
USPS failed to protect Eugene Gates and others.
Can't take it no more.
Mail carrier robbed at gunpoint.
Yes, are targeting these mail carriers for their universal keys.
Nearly 1,200 reported attacks and other assaults on postal workers just last year alone.
Next generation carriers and guests are individual union members speaking in a personal capacity, and they do not represent the views of the NALC, the United States Postal Service, or any other entity that is spoken on this program. My name is John Murphy. I'm a city letter carrier out of Naples, Florida, branch 4716.
Chris Bersampieri. I'm a letter carrier for 9 years. I'm in branch 18, southeastern Massachusetts. And way to go, John, with that Bostonian accent with carrier.
My name is James Cohen. I'm branch carrier for letter carrier for 18 years, branch president of branch 764 at Dedham, Massachusetts.
My name is C. Moline. I am a letter carrier in Seattle, Washington, branch 79. I'm the financial secretary for branch 79. I'm a steward I'm an informal A steward in my own office at Westwood Station. I'm the chair of Young Emerging Labor Leaders, Washington. Through that, I've got my position on the King County Labor Council e-board. And then I am a former coordinating committee member of Build a Fighting NALC.
Name's Virgilio Goze, NALC Branch 79 from Seattle, Sergeant at Arms for Branch 79, Formal A shop steward, Informal A, alternate shop steward for Wallingford Station, trustee for Washington Young Emerging Labor Leaders, King County and Washington State Labor Council delegate, Building a Fighting NLC coordinating committee member. There's a lot of hats, you wear in the labor movement, so those are some of them.
I got a question up the back. So, Virgilio, I heard management has been a big fan of you lately. You won an award, I heard.
At the beginning of the year starts at number 1. So for the entire year, Branch 79 has filed 5,000 grievances through all of Seattle installation and the associate offices around Seattle. Our former labor advocate, right at the arbitration level, Dave Heisler, came into the room and asked, like, "Hey, who wants to file the 5,000 grievance for Seattle?" Because we were reaching that number, and I had an idea about that. And he came to the room when I was working at Formal A, and then I was like, "Hey, I'll take that number." His historic milestone for Branch 79. So I got it, and then I took a photo of me holding the folder with the number that says 5,000, and then, funnily enough, like a week later or two, like all of a sudden, our branch president and Dave Heisler himself, the brainchild of all this, came out with a plaque that shows certificate of appreciation, 5,000th grievance. And then we took a photo of me holding of it, a shirt with sticky notes on it because that says like my name and regional steward and all of that. It was an inside joke because I finished 4 years of steward college for Region 2. I still haven't gotten the shirt that said regional steward on it and the plaque at the time. So it was kind of like an inside joke where here's your fake shirt that says regional steward on it and the plaque as a inside joke. So I took a picture of that, right? And then as a commemoration, and then I posted it up on my personal Facebook page. It's private and everything. I don't know who. Some reason I posted it up there, and then it got all the way to the postmaster's hands through an email or something, and then blasted it all over like Region 2 and all the managers in Seattle, and saying like, "Oh, Branch 79 is advocating for a race or like some sort of like award for filing more grievances," when my perception is like we're not the ones creating grievances. We just see a violation. There would be like a lot of grievances would not be resolved in our favor if there was no grievance at all, right? Because contract cases are, in terms of proving things, it's our burden of proof. So it's like we're in court, like you have to prove something happened. So if you can't prove it, you lose the case. but I don't know. I would say like 90%, 99% of the time, like we're winning. So it's like, well, management violated it. Then how could be a grievance be frivolous if it's not being if we're winning basically a lot of the times. That's my position, and that's how it became a big thing in Region 2, where just on Thursday they had this big meeting with my branch president, like the Westpac region like leaders like Scott Sutton and Nick Valfiadas to the NBA, because there's a question, right? Why are there 5,000 grievances out of Seattle?
That's the
Well,
fucking question, isn't it? It's like, why can't management figure out how to do their jobs? Why can't they use the mandate list? Why can't they send carriers home at 12 hours? Why can't they do their jobs so that we're not filing 5,000 grievances?
How big is your branch, by the way? Is it a big
Uh,
local or is it
it's
small?
there's like about 2,000 members, right? Fifteen
Okay.
hundred like active carriers or so. There's 19 stations in Seattle installation, and then there's I don't know how many associate offices around us.
Yeah.
So every week, like we're getting like lots of grievances. That was the main thrust of that meeting. Was like Seattle currently does not have a scheduling agreement with management, so right now the postmaster has this awesome plan to just like force meetings when they literally get like a grievance within 7 days, which is in the contract, which is fine. But if you have like 100 grievances every week coming in from 19 different stations, it's like, how do you keep track of that? We're managing, but it's stressful at that level, right? Like
Yeah.
when you're trying to work on like 30 grievances in 1 week because you have to send it up and management didn't meet or they didn't extend or whatever. So that
They
was the
didn't provide
main problem at the
information.
moment, because it's a shit. It's a bad situation where at the informal A level, management doesn't provide the information, doesn't give the time to stewards. You have to follow now, grieve later, and then like that's their game plan, right? Like just deny everything, all information at the informal A level. You send it up to the formal A level, force a meeting at the 7 days, and you can't prove your case because there's nothing in there, the case file, and then gotta trust step B or an arbitrator to understand that situation. But that's where we're at. Like management's plan is to just like flood us, like stress us out at that all levels of the grievance process, and deny monetary awards at all levels now. Like it used to be at step B, like we would get like how many money for the branch. Even there, like the step B teams have been the management side, anyways, has been like pressured to stop paying monetary awards. So it's a shit show all the way up the system. So they'll probably pre-arb things and give the monetary awards at that level, but it's just a corruption of the grievance procedure when there's no good faith bargaining at the informal level, formal A level, now at the step B level. It's not just our region, it's happening across the country. Paul Barner had his traveling, meetings with Jim Lloyd all over the country with the step B teams, trying to get them to be nice to each other. I feel like our region was like one of the last regions for at the step B level to not get the memo on like stop paying monetary awards, just stop cease and desists and all that good stuff. It finally caught up to us, I guess, here at Region 2.
What
So,
is the majority of your grievances
Article
that have been coming
8's
in?
17 and 31's failure to provide information. And then more recently, Article 15's failure to meet at the informal level, formal A level. So, one grievance becomes four.
Yeah,
Because
those build up
like
real
you could,
quick.
and in one of our stations became like a big failure to meet station, and recently they were trying to get a meeting with the manager or the supervisor for multiple grievances. Funny enough, like our supervisors and managers are on a leash with the postmaster where they're calling them in before they even sign anything. So they're not settling anything because they have to get pre-approved. Like 1 minute you would have a supervisor and manager agree like there's a violation. Here's the here's the standard remedy based off previous step B decisions, and then they would call in on the postmaster's office or the MCSOs, and then they would be like, no, 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 that's not contractual. Don't settle that. So there's like literally no. It's like they're all in a leash here. That's why it became even more of a problem the latter half of the year when our current postmaster came in, who was kicked out of Vancouver by an arbitrator.
Huh.
It's so funny. Like the guy gets kicked out of Vancouver and then like gets put in like the largest installation in all Region 2, I feel like. Like they only get kicked up. But yeah, it just shows how management doesn't really feel like being bargaining good faith recently. Hopefully they will. I mean, that is the core of the grievance process, which is bargaining in good faith and settling at the lowest possible step. But, I mean, we wouldn't need like 10 stewards for Seattle Formal A if they were settling at the informal A level.
We're recording this on January 26th. If you break down 5,000 grievances a year, at this date, you should already be at 356 grievances if you want to catch up to the 5,000 a year. Do you know what grievance number you're at now, currently at January 26th?
I already got one of the 300s. I know that the last time I got a number, it was already in the
God.
300s. We are on track. I talked to Dave Heisler. What was it? This past week when I was getting numbers, and I know we're on track to hit 5,000 again. We will continue to get more and more until management bargains in good faith and starts violating the contract every week. And we could be filing more. That's the crazy thing. Is like we could be filing like 20-30% more grievances.
And that's the same thing at the post office, where if they're seeing so many grievances come out of a station or an area and they're winning, so they're not frivolous, why wouldn't the post office step in and contact postmaster, supervisor, district manager and say, hey, you're not doing your job. We're losing money in these situations because obviously some of them are going to be monetary, and say, all right, well, we're going to move you to somewhere else. We can't have you over here. You got to learn your lesson, or we're going to demote you, or we're going to send you to the plant where you're not working with carriers. You would think there'd be some situation of, hey, look, you guys are costing us money. You're not doing your end of the bargain. This is causing us a shit ton of headaches and overtime and splits and grievances and monetary. You know what? Send them off somewhere else, bring somebody else in there and fix the situation so we don't have this.
My office is a 4-zip office, all right? 4 city zips. Those ODL bypasses, because they refused to use a mandate list, cost like $10,000 a week.
It's insane.
It's
And then
crazy.
the fact that they want to try to say, oh, you guys are bragging about these grievances. As a formal rep, I'm the head chief steward in my office. I don't want to file tons of grievances. It is fucking work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of taxing work. It's tiring. Me, myself, I'd rather be on the street carrying my mail. That's what I did. I've done it for 18 years. I don't mind my job. I like my job. I love my customers. I love my coworkers.
Mhm.
I don't want to sit in an office typing, writing, investigating, looking this up. I don't enjoy this. I had a postmaster threaten that one time. Oh, well, you enjoy this. That's why you keep doing it. You enjoy it. I said, you keep violating. I keep winning. I've yet to lose one in this office. So explain to me how I'm doing anything wrong. Anything we sent up, I win. So how am I doing anything I'm not supposed to be doing? First off, and all you have to do is play by the rules and not violate. We won't end up in this situation. It happens.
Yeah, it's like an arsonist complaining that the fire department keeps showing up after he does something. Like, why is the fire department here every day? Well, stop setting fires.
I
hell,
do
it's like
want to
a sport.
emphasize that
Yeah.
that the grievance process is reactive, right? Like management has this magical wand. Article 3 says I can do whatever I want, or Article 41's JCAM says, do you have to follow now and grieve later under the Iron Rule of Labor Law? And I'm like, so does that mean that you can just violate the contract in front of my face and I just say like, please stop doing it, and then you just like ignore me? Like that is the current process, right? Like we're all reacting to things. We see a violation or a carrier feels their rights have been violated and come to us and ask like, hey, can you file a grievance on my behalf? So I don't understand this mindset of management that the union or the shop steward is just like creating grievances when there has to be a basis for us to be able to violate in the first place. Because as you said, like I'd rather be back to my station carrying mail rather than sitting in an office getting fatter every freaking week. I'm sorry, like I gained weight. Like it's stressful. You stress eat at work when you're working at the Formula A level full time. It's just it's not good for your health because office work, Plus, it's all mind games in management. It's not the stress in the physical sense. I'd rather have that carrying mail, but it's more like the mind games with management.
Like, we take that home with us. I mean, like,
Always.
I've got a 7-day suspension on my desk right now. Not for me, but for a carrier. And management didn't put in the effort to make sure that at the top it says 7-day, but in the final paragraph it says 14-day, right? So they fucked up the charge already. They already messed up the charge. Forget what happened. You wrote 14 and 7-day on the same thing, and you got it concurred. So somebody read it, right? I can't say anything beyond like, I'm taking this home, the stress that I've got somebody's job on the line, and that carrier's taking that home. They're like, I might lose my job, you know? They're trying to fire me. And I'm like, yeah. And they're not even putting in the effort to actually do it because they're just stressing us all out. It's a huge tax on our lives as carriers. Like, we just want to do our job. And management plays dictators. They play like psychopaths. They're deranged. The activities they've done in my office and in every office I've been to have been crazy. Just picking on people, not being respectful. If it was any other workplace, either A, they'd go on strike, or B, it would it would be like such a violation. They'd go be in court every week. So messed up the way that they treat us. They don't treat us like people.
I think I saw a headline from the Seattle area that a year or two ago, Branch 79 organized a rally, a dignity and respect rally, and you got blowback from the national NALC. Is that true?
No, we didn't organize the Dignity and Respect rally. That was the APWU. APWU had the Dignity and Respect rallies. We organized our Fair Contract rally. So we've organized 2 of those once a year, basically around May, June. We organized a contract rally basically when the contract was starting up. We had great turnout. We got speakers from the APWU. We got speakers from, the local labor movement. It was a wonderful event. And yeah, not management, sorry, leadership said they did not encourage that. They don't want us to do that. And we were basically told also that if we wanted to do it, we weren't supposed to use the NALC logo, that we were to use our logo for our branch because, and I'll never forget it, and I'll speak about it till the day I die. I was at that e-board meeting. Goze was at that e-board meeting. I proposed it to the e-board, and somebody who is in that structure said, national leadership does not want you doing that. They don't think it's right. They don't want to put this in the public. And health insurance representative Joanne Pyle, former president Joanne Pyle of Branch 79, she said, well, this is our branch and we have the jurisdiction here and we're going to do what we think is right. So we did have that rally and then we had it again the next year. And we said, we need a good contract. We've got carriers at that time from the first event. We had carriers working those 80-hour weeks, right? I can never forget the fact that they had carriers who worked over 100 hours. Never forget it. Never forget that at one point, the NALC allowed carriers to work over 100 hours. Never forget that, right? So we did our rally. We brought the media's attention to how terrible the working conditions are at the post office currently. And we did it again this year. And if, we're still in arbitration, we'll do it again this year. This is a union. We're supposed to be organizing. It's organized labor. It's not just sit and wait labor. And we're not going to just sit and wait for shit. we're going to fight for it. And it's really disgusting how Renfro and the whole business unionism, that's their movement. The business unionist movement, what they've done to our union is repulsive. This used to be a fighting union. This used to be a union that fought for the edge. I asked Renfro to his fucking face, I said, why are we still trailing in the labor movement? And he said, no, we're leading. If everyone wants what we have, everybody wants what we have. I know that, you know that. We all know that. We're living like garbage. We are paid like shit and worked like indentured servants. We work like dogs. It frustrates me that leadership, because they sit on their ass all day, doesn't recognize that. And they think that begging for crumbs is the only way we're going to get something. But I think all of us in this Zoom know that begging for crumbs got us crumbs. And I'm ready for everything. Everything we deserve. Sorry, not to get on my little tangent, but we made everything possible during the pandemic. Why were you not able to turn that goodwill into a fair living wage? Failure. Disgusting. It's trash. And we all work still like dogs. I have carriers still working over 60 hours in my station, even though I've grieved it a million times. It still happens. And now they're trying to prevent us from ever getting that monetary reward as well.
And you're right, C. Coming out of the contract expiring, the post office had made the low. It was I believe it was in positive that year. It was the 1 year it didn't show negative. It was coming out of COVID. We did unbelievable. That was May 19th, 2023 was when the contract ended. That was the best time to negotiate. That was the best time to hit while the iron was hot. Coming out of COVID, the hard work we did, they were calling us heroes everywhere. I remember customers giving out letters, spray paint on their sidewalks, letter carriers are heroes. The press, we were finally recognized for the hard work we did. And you let that momentum pass and don't get us contract. And you wait till the post office then comes out with their report that they're 9 billion in the negative. You waited until that report comes out to get the negotiation. And then the post office say, oh, well, we're broke. Why wouldn't you strike when the iron was hot? If they weren't negotiating at that point, they weren't in good faith, why wouldn't you say, all right, you know what? I came with my offer. I feel my carriers worked hard during COVID. They were here. They didn't miss work. They're out in the street. Everybody else is sitting at home, and we're bringing them everything they need. We're working nonstop. We're going to go to arbitration. We're going to let an arbitrator hear this right now. Why? Why would you wait?
Well, he's a master negotiator. That's why. Remember that. By his own admission, he waited until the worst possible time to come up with it. But I mean, I really do believe either he's in on it with management or he's just incompetent. I agree. That's the only two options you have. It's like that line from Casino. Either you're in on it or you're too stupid to know what's going on. And I don't know which is which. Either way, you're out. So.
C. Moline was just saying that she called Renfro out to his face.
Oh, that was awesome.
That
went viral?
Was that at a branch meeting or at the national convention? Where was this located? And did you get any blowback from your branch, your state, or your business agent?
He knows my face because it's been yelling at him a couple times. At the state level, what was it last year? So this was the Washington State NALC convention, which took place in Seattle. I said to him, why are we allowing our negotiation to be basically, he's like, well, we got to be in the middle between, this and that. We got to be between UPS and, FedEx. That's our best bargaining chip. And I'm like, it is a good bargaining chip, but why are we allowing ourselves to be behind the Teamsters, trailing the Teamsters? And why don't we have a contract campaign? And I listed out all the unions. I said, this union has a contract campaign. This union has open bargaining. We are not unique in this labor movement, right? Anybody who participates in any way in their local central labor council knows we are not that unique. Understaffing happens at the SEIU. All these things happen everywhere. We're all dealing with the same problems, and we refuse to learn from what the winners are doing. We want to be losers, right? So I told him, I said that. And he said, "Oh, we lead the labor movement, whatever." And then I shot back, "We don't. We fucking don't." And then the second time that happened was at RAF Regional Assembly last year. He was going over the contract, and of course, he was like, "I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if you do go to arbitration, it's going to be shit, and you're not going to get anything. I'm not going to tell you to vote yes, but I heard the arbitrator hates you and wants you to die. And I heard that, whatever." Like he's just spouting nonsense. And so I brought up the resolutions that we had passed at national. And then I asked him point blank on each one. We said we would get updates. Where are the updates? You said we at the end we would find out what had happened. Where is that? And he's like, "Well, I've just told you. This me telling you is that was ridiculous. Anybody who was at national knew that we had voted to have the actual play-by-play from negotiation published after the negotiation was over. We are not getting that." And he said, "Oh, this is that." And so I went through each one, and then I said, what did I say? I basically said, like, you lied about 2 weeks. You lied. You lied that this was going to be a historic contract. Why should we trust that you're not lying about arbitration?
Right.
And he's like, "I never said 2 weeks, and I never said it was going to be historic." And I went, "What are you talking about? You're a liar." He cannot stop himself from lying. I don't care. Listen, I'm never going to be in regional. They know my face, they know my name, and they're never going to let me do anything because I'm willing to say that he is lying. Everyone yelled at him. Everyone was like, "No." And then we got yelled at by the regional people who were like, "That's not what this is about." I'm saying he interrupted me. He yelled at me first. All right. I have the recording. I'm not going to publish it because I don't want heat with regional. I know regional. It got out about that recording. I did not
Might
place
have
that
heard
recording
something
out there.
about that.
I did not put that recording out there. I want to say that. People got really mad at that regional. I think she's a regional assistant. I do not want people to be yelling at our brothers and sisters. The only people we should be directing, our anger towards is honestly management and then the national leadership and then, whatever the backwards element is in your local. But honestly, honest straight to God, like I don't want any bad things to come towards our regional people because our regional people have been really good on so many things. They have fought so hard against the leadership at national. They have gone against that dummy Barners no cease and desist garbage. They have fought back against that. They've asked for monetary remedies. They work hard. I know how hard they work.
Virgilio, how long have you been in? How many national conventions have you been to? And with the most recent one with Renfro being brought up on charges and having Friday, the last day, talk about SNDCs and open bargaining, what are your thoughts?
I've been a letter carrier since 2016 CCA for like 18 months and then became a regular T6. I've been active in the union almost since the beginning. I've started coming to the branch meetings because, I'm a political science major from UCLA. Like, I love the labor movement. That's how I got started in the labor movement, was in college, studying labor unions. And I initially was with the local SAIU 1199 Northwest as an organizer, and then I became a letter carrier. So that's my background. I've been to two of them. The first one was in Chicago in 2022, I believe, and then last year, in Boston. So Chicago was basically a farewell party to our former president Orlando. Typically, the convention would be like a lot more amicable, I guess. We just pass whatever National Executive Council approves. We see it. Right, they posted up on that big screen. This is 2022, by the way. That's why I said, that's what's my initial perspective of national conventions. It's just it's like one giant party. Everybody comes in there and passes whatever the executive council does. 2024 is a little bit more of an opposite environment. That's why I came up to the mic in national and say like, hey, it seems like Boston's a lot more lively than Chicago, and I got booed. everybody because they thought it was like a city thing. It's like, no, I meant the convention. Like it's the atmosphere is a lot different than 2022 and 2024. The way it's structured, right? Like we only have 5 days to do our business, I guess, because everybody pre-booked their flights, their hotels, and everything. So when the Article 10 charges got brought up, the CLC went and of course had to force Renfro first to, or at least like force the convention first to acknowledge that we can bring up the appeal to the charges because Renfro, as the president, made the interpretation of the Constitution with the backing of our own lawyers saying that, oh, you can't do that. Like, I declare that I can decide that the Constitution says this. Therefore, you cannot bring appeals to the charges. I'm not going to rehash that. Corey has gone over that multiple times. So the structure became that we had to hear the charges for 2 days. It's just that the structure and the logistics of how a convention, national convention as large as ours happens is you have 5 days. And then, everybody started leaving by the 5th day. And I wanted to stay, but for all of it, you have pre-booked flights, the branch pays for them. So you have to accept that. So a lot of the stuff that happened on the last day, I couldn't even hear about the SNDC stuff or the, even the fact that Renfro was supposed to give updates every 2 weeks and publish it on the members only portal. That was a thing, apparently. One of the last resolutions passed by, the executive council. And I never even saw it because I had to leave. See, the CLC did the right thing by forcing the votes on the Article 10 charges to be heard. And of course, that will eat up most of the working time for the convention himself. I just want to put it out there. That's my perspective of how the convention went down. It's just structurally and logistically what happened. That the resolutions fell down by the last days of the convention. Because in Chicago, we actually heard all the resolutions put up there. People brought up questions and all of that. It's just logistically how can you do it unless all the branches were and delegates were willing to stay for another few days to listen to every single one. And that's been brought up before, right? Like we should be hearing each and every single resolution that gets brought up and approved by the executive council. Logistically, how will that happen? Like, will branches be willing to extend a convention for another 2 weeks?
Speaking of the with the Article 10 charges, how did you feel about how they were presented, how the vote ended up going, how that process worked during the convention?
Maybe some other folks would do it in a different way, maybe a little bit more emotional. Like say hey, this is about the membership. It's not about the alcoholism. I personally would have just hammered the fact that Rolando said that this put negotiations in a precarious situation for the first 3 months. That was the meat of the entire debacle, in my opinion. All the other stuff, we could debate that. The executive council debated that. But to me, the heart of the problem why these Article 10 charges were so serious was putting contract negotiations on ice, or I would just say on ice, just basically throwing the entire bargaining team, questioning what the hell's happening for the first 3 months of negotiations. On the financial side, I believe Barner was handling the work rules, so that was okay. But financials is where a lot of the meat and should be the fight is happening. It's and for 3 months, he had Rolando come in and all that. Corey has gone over this multiple times. I'm not going to rehash that also. But that was the meat of the Article 10 charges. I believe that should have been the focus. 90% of the debate should have been about that, not about the alcoholism and, all of that. It's just that, yes, he is an alcoholic, but we should have addressed this either before or have been upfront and say, hey, I'm an alcoholic. I need some time off. Here's Barner. He's now going to be running the thing for the next 3 months while I'm off. Not this, just be quiet. I'm on FMLA post hoc. I don't know. But we were all wondering what the hell's happening because, as he keeps saying, this is the largest public sector contract in all the United States.
And you're usually right. You notice with the work rules, which Barner had done, those are pretty extensive, the changes that had happened in our work rules. And for good or for bad, the amount of work that had obviously gone into changing all that stuff, comparative to the financial side of what we got, you can tell where focus and work was done and work was not done.
sorry, I just want to say, like, when it comes down to the actual vote of it, you had to vote no, you had to basically take a lot of leaps of faith, right? And you had to be willing to do a lot more than to vote to keep Renfro. To remove Renfro, you had to also agree to instate Barner, who has a very uh, low satisfaction score, we'll say. You know, to remove Renfro, you have to be willing to punish somebody who has an actual disease, you know? You have to be willing to look a crying man in the eye and fire him. And fun fact, we all look crying people in the face every day and try to keep their jobs, right? The majority of the people in that room were stewards at one point, had kept a man's job because they were an alcoholic, right? We fight for that, right? And you have to then also be able to go and say, these violations are substantial. And I'm willing to fire the main negotiator in the middle of a contract fight where he says he's going to get me a historic contract. And he said that for months. And it's been a long time now. And what if we lost all the work he's been doing? You know? So I heard every reason that people voted to keep Renfro. As mad as I was at that moment, it makes more and more sense the longer we go from there, right? From that moment on, it makes more and more sense why people decided to keep him. However, the more evidence that's come to light, now that we've seen the contract, we can all go, what were people thinking? Because I mean, the more you see of that contract, the less you liked it, honestly. And so a lot of those people have now said, honestly, if I could go back, I would switch. But again, letter carriers are empathetic people. We care about each other. We're all brothers, right? Like that's what's most important to us is other letter carriers.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking for myself, but I think we're on a group chat at one point, and remember when management first leaked the contract, it was so bad. We all thought, some of us, I mean, John and I did, Murphy, but I thought it was fake. I thought this was a plant that someone's screwing with us. That there's no 1.3% a year. I thought it was fake, and I refused to believe it until, and it was like, did anyone see this? Is this a joke? And then, surely enough, the next day, as I'm reading through, I'm like, this can't be real. Somewhere, where did management make a concession in that entire tentative agreement? I didn't see a single one from them at all, and I just was blown away at. I'm like, like you're reading a book and you're like, next page, next. I'm like, somewhere in this TA, we're gonna get something good, and it was, I was just amazed at that. And we really got nothing, absolutely nothing.
Chris, you're 100% right. Maybe I'm misremembering. Like I said, I've been here for 18 years, so multiple contracts. I never remember management releasing a statement about our contract before we received the information about our contract, and and they sent it to all their management. It was sent out from management to management to management, and to me, it felt nothing like them posing that they won. It
exactly.
felt like picking us while we were down, going, "Hey, look what these fucking idiots took. Here we go. There you go."
Yep. Billy, you got something to say?
Yeah, no, coming back to the convention stuff, how C said that, most of us there were stewards. One of the things that popped up in my brain was that everybody, one of the business agents, I believe it was, called everybody there like a shithouse lawyer. So, I'm like, yes, we are shithouse lawyers as shop stewards. We interpret a contract. I say this multiple times. It's like, we're getting more money for our membership than they would probably go to a paralegal or a lawyer to do so. And sorry, I kind of derailed the thing, but it's like it just goes to show that even in convention, like there's these kinds of mentalities that looks down on what the work we do.
If this contract does get voted through or voted down, Virgilio, what would you like to see Table 2 workers and Table 1 workers organize around to change, to make sure that we don't go back to how it just was?
Uh, well, I always say this, right? Like the fight is a long-term thing. This is why building and fighting NLC moving forward should be focusing on, in my opinion, is to change the culture within the NALC. Not this whole. This is how it's always been. You gotta accept whatever is given to us from high above. That you gotta hold your leadership accountable, whether it's that gonna be at the local level, regional level, or state level, and all the way to national. Because we have a lot of power within the NALC. It's just that, we have all the structures are there. Like, the NALC, the hard work that's been done over the past 40 years, having the collective bargaining, it just needs to be used. Like if you have like a shop steward that is not filing grievances, that's like a lot of power not being used. Like in Seattle, like we act as if like we're doing all the we're big dogs or whatever filing all these grievances, but there's entire stations you barely see any grievances come out of in Seattle, which I believe is there's probably violations happening. It's just that the shop steward's not filing them, and of course we can't force them to do anything unless like a member reports it. So we have to change the culture from an individual level, right? Like a carrier willing to stand up and say to their shop steward, "Hey, I believe there's a violation. Here's my statement." So all a carrier needs to do is either verbally tell the shop steward or write it down on a piece of paper. Because once membership knows that if their branch is not representing them, that they have the right to go to the National Labor Relations Board to file the duty to represent, then maybe that will put some fires, into the bellies of other branches. Filing a grievance is I wouldn't say it's very easy, but it's the one of the main tools that should be used, right? Like some officers might think, oh, it's the last resort. You can talk it out with management at the very informal level. But the problem is, unless that informal A meeting is on a piece of paper, like you can't enforce a verbal agreement, right? Management can say like, "I'll give you time tomorrow." Tomorrow comes. When did I say that? It is a problem, right? You gotta put everything in writing, even if it's like an informal agreement. That's why it's called an informal A meeting at the informal A level. The shop steward or whoever's the leader at that level. That's how I feel. We change the culture, try to change things a little bit. Like we're trying to start doing secrets of a successful organizer, where it's not just filing grievances. You got to move forward from that also. You got to start thinking. That's the thing, right? When you're doing the most that an NLC can provide you, you can start thinking, what else can we do than just filing grievances, right? I'm focused on the nuts and bolts, so to speak. Like, hey, why aren't all the resolutions put forward and passed by the Executive Council or the convention posted up in the NALC members only portal? Right, like so we can see, and instead of like trying to pass another resolution that was already passed like decades ago, we could just point to it and say like, hey, why hasn't our leadership prioritized that resolution? Because we all get funneled, when you first start out in the NALC, right? You can say like, hey, you can pass branch resolution, and then it goes to state, goes to the national. Well, a lot of the concerns our letter carriers put forward have already been hashed out decades ago. Like, did you even know? I always come back to this. Did you even know the NALC has passed a resolution at the national level endorsing a 32-hour work week, 4 days a week, 4-day work week? Nobody knows that. Like, that's the official position of the NALC. It's in the convention booklet. If you open it up, you just read through it. It's right there and there. Then you can ask if that was published in the members only portal, the actual text, not just the summary. Then we could point forward like, hey, why wasn't this resolved like 30 years ago, 20 years ago? Why isn't that a priority of our national leadership? So that's one of the things I want to change, is to show or be more transparent, right? Open bargaining, transparency, understanding, because a lot of people have gripes, a lot of people have concerns. All the tools are there. We just need to use them. 1767s, safety and health. If your management's bullying you, fill one of those. They should reply at the end of the day what are they doing to address your bullying and harassment. Are they initiating IMIP, which is the management's investigation of harassment and bullying? If not, well, they got to file a grievance saying like they're not keeping me updated. They said that they started investigating the harassment, right? The tools are there. The structures are there.
One of the tools you just mentioned, which I would love for C. Moline to explain, is what is secrets of a successful organizer? Is that contract language?
No, it's a book. It's the best book ever. It's the only book. Do you have it? You have it right there. That's so funny. John Murphy just showed that he had it. For those listening at home, or on their route. So basically, Secrets of a Successful Organizer is basically a course taught through a book. You can actually find the book, uh, the worksheets for free online. I think that those worksheets are really good. It goes through a lot of different topics, all about organizing, right? One of the big problems the NALC has, that we've kind of been dancing around but not actually saying is basically it imagines the union not as the organizer of workers working to change their workplace, but as grievance pushers. We're not just grievance pushers, we're union organizers, right? The steward and the organizer are two different people. Sometimes they're in the same body, but they're two different people, right? The grievance is something you do by yourself in the back room, in your little office, in the break room, at your case, right? You're doing that by yourself. The organizer understands that the way that we get change is together as a unified front. Secrets of a Successful Organizer has a ton of lessons. One of my favorite is the bullseye. I think this is the most important visualization of your union that you can do. The bullseye is, imagine a bullseye. In the center, you have uh, the most active members. That's going to be your full-time officers, right? 40 hours a week, they are organizing the union, right? That's their job. They get paid to do that. Then you got the next ring. You got the people who are organizing things. They're doing the potluck. They are coming to the branch meetings. They are a steward, right? And as you get out, you get people who are less and less involved until eventually you have people who just pay dues. And then you have the people who don't pay dues, right? But the most important aspect of this is understanding that it is not just how many grievances they filed, right? Somebody can be active in a way that you are not acknowledging as an organizer, as a union leader, right? If they are reading the newsletter and showing it to their coworkers, fun fact, they're very involved in the union. They're more involved than most other members, right? Because they are learning and teaching, right? If we understand that, I know a carrier in Seattle. He's not a steward. He's not a steward. He doesn't want to be a steward. He's got stewards in his office that are really good. But he drives other carriers to events. He attends every branch meeting. He's smart as a whip. And he does so much grunt work for this union, lifting things, moving, setting chairs up, all that kind of stuff. He's in that middle of that bullseye, even without being a steward. You've got those people, retirees who they show up, they participate, they bid on the art auction at the state convention. All these people are, more central than we think and more central than we acknowledge when we only acknowledge stewardship, grievances, all that stuff, which is what this union over prioritizes. You know? So that's one page, right? That's one page, one lesson, one rethinking of the entire way you approach carriers. And one of the biggest things about the bullseye is understanding your goal is not to make everybody a full-time officer. Your goal is not to get every member in the center of the bullseye. Your goal, and it's a big goal, is just to bring everybody one step closer to the center. If you got everyone who read the newsletter but doesn't attend branch meetings to attend half the branch meetings or one branch meeting, how many people would be at your branch meeting? If you got everyone who attended the branch meeting to be a steward, or everyone who was a steward to take one more step, write an article for the newsletter, you're getting just one more step closer. to getting an active, excited branch. And that's just one lesson, right? It goes on to leadership examination. So identifying leaders is like one of the big parts of this. The biggest thing to like one of the biggest secrets is that leaders are. They exist out there. You have leaders on your workroom floor. Whether they not are you or not, I don't know. That's for you to figure out when you read the book. But not all the stewards are leaders. Some of the stewards are nerds who nobody respects. That's fine. That's fine. They are doing their job, right? You need to identify who the leaders are for what groups and get them on your side so that you can push forward. You will only be able to push your branch and your office forward as long as you have the leaders on your side, because the leaders will get everyone else to follow them. I'll never get over. I have some carriers in my office. There is a carrier in my office. Her name is Mama. Her name is Mama Trent. She is not listening to this podcast. I know she's not listening to this podcast. Mama is named Mama because she's everyone's mama, right? She is a leader in my workplace. What she does, the other carriers do. And why is she a leader? She's respected. She knows all the routes. She's been there a long time. She can case every single route in the station. When you have a question about something, they go to her. And we have a large Vietnamese population in Seattle. She's Vietnamese. And, when somebody who doesn't speak English as well has a problem, sometimes they go directly to her instead of the steward, And when they have a problem, sometimes she'll approach me as almost a representative, right? So understanding these dynamics in your office that exist, we need to understand these dynamics, map the dynamics, and all that is part of this book. And if you want to read the book, you should. It's so important to building, a successful union movement. Like one of the first campaigns we did was we made a pamphlet for not working carriers past 12 hours and 60 hours, right? It says, Mr. Zip doesn't want you to work over 60 hours or something like that. And explained how to, how carriers could clock off at 60 hours. It said, do this, do this, do this, do this, blah, 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 blah. One of the big problems with this was we did not, looking back, because I had not read the book yet, I was like, oh, we made a pamphlet. Everyone can get the pamphlet. We did not get buy-in from leaders. So the only place that pamphlet went was whoever's hand I could personally get it into, right? I could not get the stewards or the leaders in other offices to hand out the pamphlet, right? Looking back, that's what we needed to do to succeed in that campaign, right? Because I still, when I came to my office that I'm currently, and because I did this campaign originally at another office, when I came to my office, I found out the pamphlet hadn't been handed out. So the pamphlet is only as good as carriers who got it and could reference it, right? So I had to, again, hand it back out, right? But we gotta build these structures, right? The fact that we can't get all that information to every carrier is a function of the fact that our branch is not organized enough to do that. We cannot pass those tests. If you have an active AFL-CIO Central Labor Committee, Central Labor Council, you can probably find something in your area. I know me and Goze, we went to the AFL-CIO Organizing Institute. That's an amazing program. They travel across the country.
Can you explain real quick what a Central Labor Council is in terms of folks that are someone that wants to get involved with our union, but they can't run for a position because all the positions are filled and they can't become a steward. And they're like, oh, well, how do I get active? And one of the avenues that new members should be getting plugged into is our Central Labor Council. And that, I feel, is one of the biggest things to actually rebuild our union to a fighting NALC. Can you explain what a CLC is?
Well, I don't know if I agree totally with what you just said, but the Central Labor Council is basically um, like a formal coalition of unions in your local area, whatever that area is. So ours is King County, but there's also non-county related CLCs. The whole Kitsap Peninsula, which is the big peninsula, you know, um, west of Seattle, even though that's multiple counties, they just have one CLC. So it's all the unions coming together. They all send delegates. They all pay dues to this organization, and then they usually focus on legislation, interunion activities, um, and they are the representatives of the AFL-CIO in your local area, which is the national organization of all the unions. Not every union is affiliated with the AFL-CIO for bunches of reasons. What I will say about it being a good place for new people to get involved, um, usually you have to be a delegate. So usually your delegate is chosen by your president or elected. So it's maybe not the best way to get involved. It's also usually very ticky-tacky, very specific stuff going on. They're going to have a discussion for an hour about which city council member they want to endorse. That's the kind of stuff that they're going to do. However, I do believe that working with other union members and learning from other unions is our best way to build our skills. That is something I do believe. You don't have to be in the Central Labor Council to do that. If there's a strike line happening, you should go out and you should talk to them and ask, what are the issues you're striking for? Fun fact, it's probably understaffing. It's probably low pay. It's probably, you know, dignity and respect in the workplace. It's probably going to be things you are suffering with, that you are pushing against. And once you see those connections, you can see, well, how are you guys pushing against that? You know, we didn't invent anything. The NALC has not invented a goddamn thing. And we don't own the copyright to that goddamn thing either. Right? So when we learn from other people, we can build ourselves up as better organizers. When we learn from other unions, we can learn to be more like them or learn how to not be like them. I will say one thing we're really good at is grievance filing. We are the grievance filing queens. You know, I talked to other unions, they're like, we filed 10 grievances that last year, or 30 or 50. We have 1,000 members and we filed 50 grievances. And I'm like, we're just pushing them out there, right? But then they might be doing something that we don't do, right? So they can learn from us and we can learn from them. And so that's something we need to be doing. And you can only do that by engaging in your local labor movement.
If Branch 79 wants to address any of the Trump attacks on federal workers, from trans rights to collective bargaining and privatizing, and right now they're talking about increasing our retirement benefits and slashing our healthcare things. If Branch 79, Virgilio or Moline want to discuss that, please feel free.
This is a constant battle, and the last time apparently our union was caught off guard when they brought this up in an omnibus bill or whatever. So hopefully they'll be on guard for our retirement benefits moving forward, knowing that possible attacks will happen. The NLRB is being attacked constitutionally at the Supreme Court by Tesla, which is, Elon Musk is this, I call them his favorite oligarch. So, but that's the thing, right? Like, it's the people you surround yourself with, and when the people Trump surrounded him with is not very supportive of our movement, the labor movement, and it's going to be attacking our, retirement benefits, our collective bargaining rights.
It's only through working with the customers, organizing customers and ourselves, will we be able to say, like, actually, this is going to be really bad for the entire country, right? We have to be able to push against that. And unless we're organized, we're not going to be able to mobilize, right? It's not going to be that, the branch that has, no engagement is going to be able to turn out all the members to fight against privatization. It's not going to be that we're suddenly able to do things that we're not able to do yesterday, right? These are skills, these are tools, and these are systems that we develop over time. If you've never done a rally, how are you going to be able to do months of protracted rallies to fight privatization? It only follows that organized unions fight in an organized way. When we don't fight in an organized way, we fight individually. You'll see this on the Reddit all the time. Everyone's like, I'm sticking up by doing this. And it's something like extremely individualized, atomized. The carrier is alone. You got to recognize that the nature of our work is isolated. You're in a case by yourself. You're in your truck by yourself. Your only people you talk to is, the old ladies who sit on their porch. Right? That is what they want us to see. They want us to see life that way, to see our jobs that way, right? But we got to see that no, we are working together. We work with the community. We work for the community.
If I could just add on one thing too, because you brought up an excellent point about how the NALC has no practice on rallies. Like they don't organize rallies. So this is something I sent out. This is in 2020. Remember when everyone was protesting to joy, getting rid of the voting, all the blue boxes? There was massive nationwide protests. So I asked, a certain MBA office, what are we doing? Like, all these, are we going to join in? Because we should be a part of it because this affects us. And this is the response I got. And this is it. Chris, thank you for your heads up. If your members are invited to or attend a rally hosted by a member of Congress and or a sister union, only full-time officers and retirees should attend. If questions, keep comments focused around the need for funding in the current stimulus bill. Do not get caught up in the delayed mail, removal of machines, and limitations on overtime. We are addressing those issues and do not want any of our members butting in themselves in harm's way. That's,
I love when members butt into what is their livelihood.
exactly.
I love to butt into my job. I love to butt into the future of my career. It is condescending. It is an understanding of members as customers. We pay for the grievance filing. We pay to get the insurance. We pay to have unions. No. The fund is to help organize because we're stronger together. And this leadership doesn't fucking understand what a fucking union is. They think it's a business. They think it's how they line their own pockets. They think it's how they stay in an office and off of the street. They don't know what's up. They don't get it. And that's how you could come up with a doo-doo brain, dummy, thought like keep carriers out of carrier business. The problem needs to be solved from the bottom. Only from the bottom can we really change this union from a service union to a fighting, activist, working class union.
So what have been the major changes you've seen with the job since you guys began?
One of the major changes I've seen is the quality of our management team has gone down significantly over the past, decade. I guess there's this huge turnover of the quote unquote experienced supervisors or managers that they're just hiring people, and expecting them to know our contract and enforce it properly, right, on the management side is a tall bar because right now the way the postal service got structured after DeJoy is everything comes from headquarters. There's no more like fiefdoms of the districts, right? Like it's straightly plugged to headquarters. So whatever headquarters say on the operation side, here's the crazy part. There's an operation side and there's a labor side for the postal service. The two do not communicate or they hate each other. So it's like labor would try and force the contract on within the postal management side and tell operations to do certain things and actually follow the contract. Ops says, F that, we'll just get the mail out. Whether it's like whipping all the carriers to go out and work more or violate the TA, they can file a grievance later where we'll argue it's punitive. It's like we're in this hamster wheel of insanity in the postal service at the moment. That's what changed, is that everything comes straight from the top. They have two different bosses that are fighting with each other because one pot of money comes from this pot of money, and we'll pay a grievance in the end, or not even, because we're gonna argue it's punitive in front of an arbitrator. That's what's changed. The quality of management has gone down significantly. I don't know if it was even better back in the day. I've heard, I've seen arbitrations from the 80s, it's the same thing, but it's blatant in your face now. They will say to your face, I will have to violate the contract to get the mail out, or I have been instructed from the top. These spreadsheets and these PowerPoints that Corey has shared just shows that they do not care whatever the M39 says or the national agreement says. They will violate it. They will send spies out there to watch you. That is the most blatant violations of our contract that I've ever seen. The fact that they will have someone outside of your district come in and tell your supervisor what to do and instruct their supervisor to put you on a 16-7. That is how blatant it is. It used to be like your supervisor does not like you and will go out there and make your life hell. Now it's someone above them. It's indiscriminate is how it is.
We brought in Jamie Partridge. Please introduce yourself.
I am not next generation. I'm old guard, but I don't identify with the good old boys. I've been part of the radical tradition coming out of the 1970 strike. Got hired on in '84 at a time when we were, when we've been debating, we would have contract campaigns, we would debate tentative agreements and consider going on strike again. I'm sorry, I'm in Portland, Oregon, Branch 82, and I've been retired for 13 years. It was a much more militant and democratic time. By the late 90s, we had become a bureaucratized union as Vince Zimbrato was taking an exiting. I remember in a 1990 late 90s convention when we voted to move our strike fund. Did you know we had a strike fund? Move our strike fund into our political action fund, which is kind of a signal of the direction that our union took. And but however, at the local level, I was part of a rank and file caucus that took leadership of our union, our local, where we were employing a lot of the tactics that people have been talking about, rallies and coalitions with other unions, and of course, fighting the Reagan attempt to privatize the Postal Service, and we were quite active in community coalitions. We helped start the Jobs with Justice Coalition in Portland because our Central Labor Council was like worthless when it came to labor solidarity. It was all about just politics and charities. And I held several positions within my branch during that time.
So Trump is back into office and he's talking about privatizing. And one of the articles that just came up is President Trump might appoint 4 Board of Governor seats and to help remove Postmaster DeJoy from his position. Is this good news or bad news?
Actually, the Trump agenda is worse than the DeJoy agenda. Trump appointed, this criminal, corrupt, cruel Postmaster General DeJoy because he was a right Republican mega donor who was on the Republican National Committee and friends of the billionaire class, and he came out of the logistics industry, private trucking, and at the beginning you could see that he was moving postal resources into the private sector, like giving all these contracts to the trucking companies that he used to run. The upsurge against his delaying the mail and following the Trump agenda going into the 2020 election, and this huge uprising where we had rallies in 80 different cities, and basically blocked what DeJoy was trying to do, and the 2020 election was so well delivered by postal workers that even though DeJoy has rolled out this agenda of consolidations and delay of mail, and he's trying to eliminate 50,000 postal worker jobs, and is making delivery to rural communities much worse. He has contracted in a lot of postal work. It used a lot of trucking. That was private is now postal trucking, in town trucking, and he's eliminated the private consolidators of package, bringing more of that work into the postal service. So it's it looks like DeJoy is not a privatizer. Is not in favor of privatizing the postal service, whereas Musk and Trump seem to be pretty clearly in the sell it off to Amazon camp. And certainly in 2018, the Trump administration commissioned a white paper done by the OMB, which basically called for the privatization of the postal service. It's weird, to think about defending DeJoy against Trump, but the main flexion point that you mentioned is there are 4 out of 9 of the Postal Board of Governors positions vacant right now. And Biden was, and 9 meaning 2 of those positions are the Postmaster General and the Deputy Postmaster General. So it's really 7 that are appointed, nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. And Biden attempted to fill those seats, and the Republicans blocked that, Rand Paul in particular, in the Senate. So Trump now has a Senate that will confirm whoever he appoints. But it's a little confusing because the commentators say the appointees that Trump is looking at seem to feel like technocrats, not particularly privatizers like Robert Taub, who's the vice chair of the Postal Regulatory Commission, and who has questioned the joy in delivering for America, and Thomas Day, who's a former Postal Regulatory Commissioner and former postal executive, and Tom Cochran, he runs the Package Shippers Association, which is Amazon, DHL, FedEx, etc., but also a former postal executive. So it's not clear to me that that going after DeJoy is a major agenda item for Trump. I think he thinks that privatization can actually happen in some other way, which of course it has to be something that Congress does. If folks aren't familiar with what privatization means, it basically means bifurcating the postal service to Americans. That is, there will be urban delivery, which will be similar to what we have with UPS and FedEx, which is like swift overnight delivery, and these big consolidated plants, that companies drop off their parcels and they're out the next day. And then in rural areas, it'll just get worse and worse and worse. And you can see that it's happening already. The delivery standards are instead of 3-day, now they're 5-day. And the Postal Service only meets them like 70% of the time in rural areas. For Postal Reorganization Act of 1970 established that all Americans are entitled to the same reliable, effective, affordable mail service, whether you live in the outback of Alaska or the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And so what's interesting that's happening in the Congress is that Republicans are usually the people who represent rural districts. And so you're seeing this revolt of the Republican Congress people against the delay of mail in their districts. And so, if they figure out that privatization would make it even worse, then it's I think we have a good chance of fending this off. However, the global picture of privatization of postal services is that it's moving forward. It has swept the European Union. Almost every major, the Royal Mail in the UK, the DHL in Germany have, become privatized, and the impact is just horrendous. I mean, a number of days of delivery are cut. Some places like the Netherlands are cut to like 3 days a week. The mail is delayed. Post offices are closed. Postal workers' conditions are worse, and there's a much higher turnover is happening in places where the postal services are being privatized. And of course, we see how the right uses the delay of mail to demonize the postal service and say, well, this obviously has, the private sector could do a better job. It would be more efficient, blah, blah, blah. Look at how quickly UPS delivers your packages. That's what we're facing. We're also, of course, facing as whether or not there's privatization, we're facing the fact that DeJoy is trying to cut 50,000 jobs and has just rolled out this incentive for voluntary early retirement, $15,000 to clerks and mail handlers. The automation that's happening and the consolidation that's happening will fit with an elimination of those jobs. Letter carriers aren't facing because we're understaffed. I think those are the main points you wanted me to touch on. I actually wanted to weigh in a little bit on how Trump is attacking our trans carriers in particular. His right out of the box agenda is this huge anti-trans campaign across all sectors, of course, but impacting the Postal Service by saying federal workers, including postal workers, have to use the bathroom of their sex assigned at birth, which puts trans carriers, of which there are thousands, right, in this really scary place of harassment and bullying and being forced out. We as carriers have to figure out how to step forward into these fights, which, are happening. It's not just carriers, of course, but, our whole communities that are in these fights. And I think that I was really excited to see that Build a Fighting NALC came out with a statement in support of trans carriers immediately. I think this is such an important fight to fight. And the whole thing about eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion, civil rights generally, and protections against discrimination against marginalized populations. It's like this is our people. This is what solidarity is about, and we have to engage. Whether from everything from passing resolutions to joining community coalitions.
I'm trans. For anybody who's listening at home, I'm trans. I've been out the entire time I've been at the post office. I live in mamby-pamby, Seattle. You can think about whatever you want to think about Seattle. You can think whatever you want to think about me. But I'm just going to tell you, there are trans letter carriers. This is a workplace issue to me. To make me use a bathroom that I have never used at the post office. I've never used the men's bathroom at the post office. I've always used the women's bathroom. And my coworkers and I are fine with that. We're good with that. That's the way it's been. And, the reality is the Trump administration wants to say, or they may be putting forward this House bill, right? Saying that, we have to use the bathroom of our chosen of our quote unquote birth sex, whatever, that I would have to use the men's room. Honestly, it's just like bullying and harassment in the workplace, just like anything else. You wouldn't let them, decide that you had to use the other bathroom. Why would you let them do it to me? Right? There's solidarity when we come together as a union. That's why it's a workplace issue, because I'm in the fucking workplace. And it's my fucking issue. If they were to say, deaf carriers can't carry, or, any other discriminatory activity, this union would be lining up to say no. Or maybe it wouldn't. Maybe we're seeing that this union isn't about that. This union lets management, lets the government pick on certain classes of carriers. It's fine. They pick on CCAs all the time. We don't say anything. They pick on PTFs all the time. We don't say anything. Oh, the fact that, women in my office, not all of us can have a locker because there aren't enough women's lockers in the locker room. Who cares? Actually, maybe that's what this point is that this union doesn't mean anything to anybody, but it means something to me. It means something to me. That's why I put my fucking time into it. It means something to all the letter carriers out there who say, actually, when I say a letter carrier is a letter carrier, I mean every letter carrier is a letter carrier. Every single one of us is a letter carrier who deserves respect in the workplace, not just the ones I pick and choose to respect the dignity of. It's undignified, and it's just not right. And I don't know how to explain that to the people who want to post, oh, this isn't a postal issue. Oh, actually, personal beliefs, blah, 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 blah. You suck. You should look yourself in the mirror. Honestly, you should look at yourself in the mirror. You want to say you're an active fighting letter carrier? You don't fight for all carriers. You're just like management. You pick favorites. Go join management. You wanna enforce that rule? Go join management. That's who's gonna enforce that rule. It's gonna be management. They're gonna pick out your coworkers and bully them. And you're gonna stand beside management. Because what? You're weak. You are weak, you're sad, you're not worth being a member. If you want to be a good member in good standing who fights for your brothers and sisters and siblings in this union, then you'd fight for all carriers. You'd fight for your trans carriers. You'd fight for your black carriers. You'd fight for your disabled carriers, your carriers who only work 8 hours because they're medically restricted. You fight for all carriers. If you don't want to fight for all carriers, that's not what this is about. That's not what BFN's about. That's not what the CLC was supposed to be about. Not what any of this was supposed to be about. All right? If that's what you want to do, go join leadership. Go to Leadership Academy. Go get hired at National. Be a staffer. Do whatever you want to do. I don't give a shit because I don't care about you, because you don't care about me, because you don't care about carriers. That's what is important. I'm sick and tired of playing this game of like, blah, 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 blah. Oh, this is just actually an issue. No, this is important to me and to like 10% of carriers who are queer. That's about the population percentage. The lack of solidarity in this union at every level really repulsed me in this past month, you know. But I think we can change in the same way that I think we can change the way that, this union is a business union. This union, is a good old boys club. I think it can change the way that, we focus highly on grievances. I think we can change this union into a fighting union for every minority that believes that change can come, and it comes at the workplace where we have the most power.
If a worker has to move out of their environment, that impacts their life and it impacts the union, because if that worker was a die-hard unionist or even just a good worker, as you know, in the post office, that's hard to find. It's hard to find a young, I mean, like in your 20s worker applying for this place anymore. And if the federal law is coming down to create an oppressive mechanism onto that worker's life, that is an attack on the entire working class. And that's one of the issues I think going forward that's very uncomfortable that people need to hear.
The reality is, if I can't use a bathroom on my route, then I can't do my job. It all just comes back to that. It pushes us out of the workforce. The reason that they're cutting off, restroom use is to remove us from public life. And I'm not going to let it happen here, but it's the union's job and as a collective to not let it happen anyway.
I just want to piggyback on this too, and we're all workers. We're all in the working class, and we're different. People are different from you. Get over it. That's like the fact that we still have to have this people really upset about it. It's ridiculous. I don't care. Just shut up. All right, keep your opinions to yourself. They're a carrier. I'm a carrier. We have that in salt. That's what we have in common. We have the same enemy, who's the boss. Management loves dividing us, and this is another tool they're going to use to try to divide us. To say, no, don't look at the real enemy. It's not the privatization. It's not DeJoy, whoever. No. This Group A is the problem today. 20 years, like Murphy said, 10 years ago, it was this group, Group B. It's Group C. Anything to divide us is a tool of management. So seriously, grow up and get over it. That's all I have to say. This is the fact that we still have to debate this is just I hate this stuff. So no, good God, we're all workers.
Solidarity is key. That's the main thing. Solidarity is key.
For all of you listeners out there, just please, if you can follow us on YouTube on Next Generation Carriers. We're on Spotify, Apple iTunes. Is TikTok still around? Does that still exist? I don't know. Maybe on TikTok, maybe not on TikTok. Find out. So, all right. So, yes, please give us a follow. Give us a share. We would love a 5-star review. It would be wonderful to help fight the algorithms that probably DeJoy wants. DeJoy wants to give you, so fight DeJoy. 5-star reviews is how you fight them. Don't believe about individualizing it. That was a myth. 5-star reviews fight the system for our podcast, please. All right. Thank you for that. All right. And thank you, Jamie, Vilo, and C. Moline. Thank you so much for coming on. We really do appreciate it. So, all right. Keep up the fight. Keep up the struggle. And we'll see you all soon enough.